Hello my bookish lovelies, Carrie here, and today I'm going to be talking about all of my most anticipated releases for the month of October. This is another big month, so get some popcorn, set up, because we're probably going to be at this for a little bit because there are so many books that are coming out, amazing books that are coming out in the month of October, and I could not be more excited. I just love this season so much because this is the time of year. It's always August, September, October, and then it starts to cool down a little bit in November again, because this is the height. All of the wonderful books that are coming out for the year most anticipated releases come out during these 3 months, and this is no exception because there's just some amazing books coming out, and I just need so many of these books. I'm just so excited. So let's go ahead and get into the books that I am really excited for. Once again, I will be posting Goodreads links to all the books that I am going to be discussing down in the description below. If there was a book that I was excited about that I did not that wasn't top tier, but I'm kind of interested in it anyway, it's still going to be in that list. So if you guys are interested in any of these books, make sure you guys go check that out. So a bunch of these books come out on October 6th, which is what we're going to be starting with. So my most anticipated book of the year comes out October 6th. It is The Invisible Life of Addie Larue. This is about a girl named Addie Larue who makes a deal with the devil that she will live for a long time, and when she's done living, the devil will claim her soul. Victoria Schwab has described this as being pretty much as close to a romance as she will get, and it just sounds so amazing. I just cannot wait for this. So basically, if somebody doesn't see Addie Larue anymore, they kind of forget about her, and she meets a boy that does not forget about her. And I'm so excited for this. It just sounds so wonderful. And it's considered a fantasy. This is supposed to be the book that Victoria Schwab has worked years on. So I'm hoping to get to that one also very soon. I did order the Owl Crate special edition box for this, so I will be unboxing that on my channel as soon as I get it, and I'm going to be really excited to share that with you. The next book that I'm really excited about is going to be Hush, written by Dylan Farrow. This is a Wednesday Books release, and I'm really excited for this one also. This is the first in a series, and I have been looking at this book for months. So the tagline in this is, "They use magic to silence the world. Who will break that hush?" So 17-year-old Shay leads a seemingly quiet life in a small town, and everything's going along just perfectly until her mother is murdered. Now Shay has to go and journey and unlock the truth and kind of find out what's going on in this magic community. There's a lot that's going on behind the scenes that she doesn't know about. The bards claim that they use the magic of telling to keep everybody safe. Shay suspects otherwise. Honestly, I don't know a ton about this, but I'm just really curious about this. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that horror movie, The Quiet Place, but I kind of get Quiet Place vibes from this, so I'm kind of curious to know if how on point this is. I don't think they don't talk at all. I just think that it's not probably as much talking, or maybe Hush actually alludes to a bunch of mystery and a bunch of things that you don't know that's happening in this general vicinity. So I'm just kind of curious about that also. Another book that is the start of a series that I'm really excited about is called Over the Woodward Wall. That's written by A. Deborah Baker. Now, A. Deborah Baker is actually a pen name for Sheena Mcguire, and I don't know if you guys know who Sheena Mcguire is, but if you don't, she wrote Middle Game, and she also wrote the Wayward Children series. So I'm kind of curious, this is actually her middle grade debut. So this is a tagline for this. Writing as A. Deborah Baker, New York Times bestselling and award-winning author Sheena Mcguire introduces readers to a world of talking trees and sarcastic owls, of dangerous mermaids, of captivating queens in Over the Woodward Wall, an exceptional tale for readers who are young at heart. If you trust her, you'll never make it home. So this takes place from dual perspectives between Avery and Zib, and they kind of talk, but they also live in two very different worlds. So I'm not really sure what medium they used to talk, but that sounded really kind of interesting to me. So basically what they do is they go over and under into a magical world to find each other, and this magical world has all these really enchanting creatures and everything else, and they kind of go on a journey to kind of discover each other. This sounds like it's going to be a very strong book for friendship and adventure, and it says on Goodreads, it says Untitled #1, so I'm assuming that it's probably going to be part of a series. It's going to be the first in a series, but this just sounds so cute and so awesome, and I love the fact that Sheena Mcguire is kind of diving into middle grade. I have loved pretty much everything else that she has written, so this I'm getting goosebumps talking about this. I'm so excited for it. but I'm really excited because like this is her kind of like debut into this, and I just think it's gonna be so good. She just writes so many amazing things, like, and I just love pretty much everything that, like I said, that I've read by her. And I'm kind of curious about like the enchanted creatures and the mermaids and everything else that's going to be in this. So this also comes out October 6th. So the next book like that I'm really excited about, it's the last book that's coming out October 6th. It's called Blaze Wrath Games by Empira Ortiz. So the tagline for this is How to Train Your Dragon meets Quidditch through the ages in this debut fantasy set in an alternate contemporary world in which dragons and their riders compete in an international sports tournament. Oh, we are going to be getting dragons and dragon riders in sports in like a Quidditch type atmosphere. Guys, this is going to be so amazing, and it's also an LGBTQIA fantasy, which I'm so excited about. And I believe it's going to be female, which is just so awesome. Like, this just sounds so good. So Lana Torres is competing along with 16 other countries as a dragon rider for this Blaze Wrath Finals. This is the first ever World Cup, and she's competing for the team that represents Puerto Rico. But Lana discovers like that a former Blaze Wrath superstar has been burning down dragon sanctuaries all around the world in an attempt to get the games cancelled. And this previous Blaze Wrath superstar is actually riding a dragon that was originally a human. So Lana's trying to figure out how to save the Blaze Wrath games. All Lana really wants to do is represent her country, but now she has to undertake this little adventure and go and try to stop this all from happening so that the games can continue to proceed and she can play her sport. Guys, this sounds so good. I've actually already pre-ordered it. It looks like it's a standalone. They don't say anything about like there being anything else coming after this. I am so ecstatic about this though. Dragon riders and games and adventure and trying to stop like the bad guys. I mean, it's just, oh, this is going to be so good. I'm so excited. So it seems like for the month of October, the biggest day for releases is going to be October 13th. There are a ton of releases this day, and I'm just so many books, so little time, and just so many wonderful, amazing books that are coming out. I'm just, oh. Okay, let's go ahead and get into all of the books for October 13th. So the first book I'm going to be talking about is The Once and Future Witches by Alex Iharo. This is the same author that wrote The Doors of January, which I read a few years ago, and I enjoyed it. Like, I thought it was pretty good. It was the debut book for like that author. I think I gave it like a 4-star. So it was definitely like, it wasn't like my favorite book, but like given the fact that it's a debut book, like I thought it was really good. So I'm really excited because like I'm kind of curious to see like how this author has progressed since then, and we get witches, and I'm just so here for that. So this entire story is like a fantasy historical fiction like that takes place in 1893, where witches are not a thing anymore. Like a lot of them got burned. Now like the only place that they can find freedom, like if people like if women want any sort of power, they have to find it through voting. The 3 Eastwood sisters join the suffrage movement in New Salem, and they begin to pursue the forgotten words and ways of the witches in hopes to turn a women's suffrage movement into a witches' suffrage movement. In this world, there is no such thing as witches, but with everything like that they're hoping to accomplish, they hope to make witches a real life thing again. The way like that this is framed just sounds very intriguing to me, because like it's almost like they're using witches as kind of like a parallel for the suffrage movement, where, you know, during like the time like that women like were trying to vote, they were also having to fight for like a lot of equality and a lot of rights, and they were also like, you know, like in some instances like put in insane asylums and tortured and stuff like that, like in order to try to get like information and, you know, try to make them come off as crazy. And in the suffrage movement, like they had to make a lot of sacrifices in order to do that. So I feel like this is going to be like kind of a parallel to like historical events like that took place like during the suffrage movement, except with witches in 1893. So I'm just really curious like to see how this kind of plays out, because like this is a very unique synopsis, so I'm just kind of curious like to see how I feel about it. But I'm really excited for this one too. I think it's going to be brilliant, and the cover, oh my god, the cover is just so gorgeous. Like I love this cover so much. So the next book that is also coming out October 13th is Black Sun by Rebecca Rohnhorse, and this is the first book in a trilogy called Between the Earth and Sky. From the New York Times bestselling author of Star Wars Resistance Reborn comes the first book in the Between Earth and Sky trilogy, inspired by the civilization of pre-Columbian Americans and woven into a tale of celestial prophecies, political intrigue, and forbidden magic. And the portion of this that's in italics, it says, a god will return when the earth and sky coverage under the black sun. So this takes place in the city of Tova, and the solstice is usually a time for wonderful celebration. But this is the year where the solar eclipse takes place, and the solar eclipse in this world is considered a bad omen. The Sun Priest describes this as being an unbalancing of the world. Meanwhile, a ship that is bound for Tova launches, and there is this man on the ship. He's blind, he's deaf, essentially he seems harmless, but he's actually kind of ends up being the villain. So I'm really intrigued by this. Like, I think this is going to be such a good book. A lot of people are talking about this book like right now, and the cover is gorgeous. Like, the premise just sounds so intriguing, and I just cannot wait to get my hands on this book, because this it's another wonderful release. And it's like a science fiction fantasy, which I also really love, and I think it's just going to be wonderful. Another book that is also coming out October 13th is Charming as a Verb. This is a YA contemporary surrounding Henry Haddie Howinger, and Haddie can charm just about anyone. He is the star debater for his prestigious school. He's also the resident dog walker for a lot of the local people like in his neighborhood. But his intense classmate Corinne finds out that his dog walking scheme is actually a scam, and she pretty much comes to a compromise with him so she does not reveal him to the neighbors that are entrusting them with their dogs. This hustle that Henry has kind of accumulated, this blackmail of Henry, they kind of like become a lot more like than friends, I think. I have a feeling like this might be kind of like a YA contemporary romance, and this is like more than they either bargained for, so I'm kind of like curious like to see like what this is. I know it sounds very sweet. I'm very like intrigued, and I think like the premise for this is very like unique. So this is another book like that I'm really excited about. From what I can tell, this is a standalone. Like, this is not going to be a series, which I'm also very excited about, because I like it when I can just like devour like a whole story and not have to worry about there being anything after it, and this is one of those books. Another book that I'm really excited that's coming out is an adult romance book, All About Us by Tom Allen. So this book is actually like perfect for people like that are wanting to get into a Christmas spirit, because this actually kind of has like a Christmas theme to it, because it takes place on December 5th, the year of his relationship being on the rocks with his current girlfriend Daphne. Well, this also happens to be approximately around this time that Alice, his old friend, gets back in touch with him. Ben has always thought about Alice as being the one that got away, but after he reconnects with Alice, he wakes up on the first day that he ever kissed Daphne, and he has to figure out like on making a really tough choice between Daphne, who as a potential relationship, or Alice, who's the one that got away. This book has been described as being for fans of people who read in 5 years, which is kind of like a book like that kind of takes you back, like, 5 years earlier, like how things could have been different. And I feel like that this book's going to also be like kind of like an alternate kind of timeline sort of thing, where people are having to make decisions about like, a life like that they didn't wake up to, like they haven't been building up to previously, and it kind of like just kind of shifts reality, like, and you kind of have to rediscover yourself through that shifting of reality. So I'm really kind of intrigued by this. I like the fact that it's got kind of a Christmas twist. I think this is going to be a book like that I'll probably like want to read during the Christmas season, because of like the context and everything. Like during Christmas time, like it's nice to have like, like all the stuff like that gives you like the nice warm fuzzies to really look forward to. So I'm really excited for this. So another book that I'm really excited for that's coming out is actually going to be by Maggie Stiefvater, who is the same person that wrote the Raven Boys series. And I'm really excited because this is a YA graphic novel about two brothers. It's called Swamp Thing Twin Branches by Maggie Stiefvater and illustrated by Morgan Beam. So this is kind of a coming of age story between twin brothers Alec and Walker, who they're in the year before college. One of them is very like outgoing and life of the party, and the other one's very, very quiet, but they are inseparable. They are very close. They wander into the woods and they get into the swampy area and realize that things are very, very dark there. During like their lives like in this rural area, like when they moved from the city into the rural countryside, like where they discover this swamp, they kind of like diverge like a little bit. The outspoken brother is kind of like going out, like he's meeting like new people, he's trying to carve his name into the social scene, and the other brother that's a lot more quiet is actually like in a laboratory, like kind of conducting experiments and everything. Some distance actually does kind of happen between them during this time, like in the countryside. Now, as their lives diverge, they have to confront like a lot of truths, a lot of familial things, and this divergence like kind of forces like them to explore like their surroundings and kind of like the world like that they find in the swamp. So this does sound like kind of like it's kind of a mystical, magical type thing, but also like a story of like brotherhood and, you know, like brotherly love. So I'm really excited for this. I think the illustrations like on this, like kind of like, if they're anything like the cover, I think they're going to be like really, really good. And I'm just really excited for this too. The next book that I'm really, really excited for is called You Know I Am No Good by Jessica Ann Foley. And this is described as a YA feminist contemporary. This is about a girl's fight to define herself other than her reputation. Mia is considered a troubled teen. She goes out, she parties, she drinks, she gets bad grades. Like, she's definitely not like the ideal teen, and definitely does not like live up to the ideal standards of a good student. Her parents think that she is very out of control, but she underestimates how out of control her parents actually think that she is. So they send her to a boarding school in Minnesota. While she's at the boarding school, she starts having all of these revelations about how women are treated in their society, and during like all those revelations, she starts to question how society treats young women, and forces outside her control force her to confront what happens when she makes herself vulnerable. This sounds like it's kind of a really good coming of age feminine story, and I really love feminine stories because like they're very empowering. They give you like a really good perception like of aspects of feminist culture like that, you know, usually really like need a light shined on them. So I'm really excited like to read this one because I just think that this is also going to be another one that's going to be really, really amazing. Another book that I'm really, really excited about is Beyond the Red Veil by Mia Fitzgerald. This is a YA LGBTQIA fantasy. And this is a tagline for a dark, queer YA fantasy that's perfect for fans of the Three Dark Crowns series and Wicked Saints. For Enola Rangu kills one person in Oksha who can create water, she must find a way to save her city from dying of thirst. So Enola Rangu, she is this person, like this lady who is a very high society, and she ends up marrying her childhood friend Alessandra Morati, who coincidentally enough, like they're both gay. So like it's kind of a convenient thing for them because like they are both gay and they both acknowledge the fact that they're both gay. Manuela doesn't really want a love match. She actually is more concerned with wanting power. But Emmanuel has a secret like that could shatter everything. It has this person like that is creating water using blood. Then omens start happening like where bruises start appearing on people's skin, and they have to be drained of their life force in order to kind of correct the situation. Everyone throughout history has given themselves up for the greater good time, except Emanuela, who is hiding a little something on her hip that she doesn't want anyone to see. And it's something that's been out of sight for years. But during Emanuela's wedding, she is exposed for what she has been hiding, and the water Kriya, they take away like her ability like to make more water out of blood, and so she's kind of like racing against the clock like to try to figure out how to get more water for her people. This just sounds like it's just so many things, and this is just another unique kind of like setting for a story. If nothing else, like I want to read this purely for curiosity's sake because this just sounds very interesting. So I have not read anything by Rainbow Rowell. I know that she's a very problematic author, like she's done a lot of like really bad stuff, but there's a huge fan base for her Fangirl book, which it's just a really popular book among people who like YA contemporaries. Well, they are creating a manga, and this is going to be volume 1 of the manga that is based off of that Rainbow Rowell book, Fangirl. It's basically like a manga like retelling of Fangirl. It's adapted by Sam Maggs and illustrated by Gabby Nam. So Kath is a huge Simon Snow fandom, and it's kind of like a lot of fan fiction and everything else. And when Kath goes to college, she's struggling like with becoming like the person she is meant to become in college and growing out of like all of the things that she loved in high school, but she can't quite bring herself to get rid of her love for Simon Snow, which is this fandom like that she's really into. So this is kind of like a coming of age story. Like this girl Kath is kind of like struggling like the stigma like that is existing with fan fiction. And like I said, I haven't read this book, but the manga for it like looks like it's going to be like really interesting. And I know like there's like a lot of people who have read this book, which is like why I'm including this on here. Like that would be really interested to know like that there is a manga like that's going to be adapted for this. So just FYI, I figured like you guys would want to know about it, but that is the last book I have to discuss for October 13th. So we're going to move on to the next book that I'm really excited about, which is going to be on a different day. So the next book that's coming out is October 15th, and it's called The Ghosts of Dolly Alderson, and it's considered adult fiction. I feel like this is very like relatable because this is about getting older and feeling like your time is passing before your eyes before you feel like you have an opportunity to really accomplish anything. Friendships are fading, ex-boyfriends are moving on and getting married. But this is also like about new relationships. Nina Dean is in her early 30s and she's a successful food writer. And so she ends up meeting like this hero called Max, and he's like the perfect guy. So it's kind of like this like fun, flirty, like adult fiction romance. And it just sounds really interesting. So like I wanted to include it on here because like I've been like in kind of like a romance mood like lately. Like, so the only book like that I'm really excited about that's coming out on October 16th is a nonfiction book. And this is a book that I wanted to read quite a few months ago, like during Black Lives Matter and everything that was going on. Like it's still going on, of course, but I wanted to read it back then, and I was really bummed like to find out like that it's not coming out until October. But we're actually fast approaching it, and I did pre-order it, so I'm really excited. It's called White Tears, Brown Scars, How Feminism Betrays Women of Color. So it is actually a book like that is described for readers of white fragility, white tears, brown scars, an explosive book of history and cultural criticism that argues that white feminism from Australia to Zimbabwe to the United States has been a weapon of white supremacy and patriarchy deployed against black and indigenous women and women of color. So this actually takes us back to the slave era, when white women fought in court to keep their slaves, through the centuries of colonialism when they offered a soft face of brutal tactics to the modern workplace. White Tears, Brown Scars tells a charged story of white women's active participation in campaigns of oppression. It offers a long overdue validation of experiences of women of color. So this is a book like that I really love digging in my hands like into feminist culture, but it's also like really good to experience a information like this from a completely different perspective. So I'm really curious like about this because I think this is going to be like a very eye-opening book, and it's one that I've been waiting for quite a while to come out, and I'm really excited like that's finally coming out. Actually, like as we speak, it is on its way here, which I'm really excited about because I didn't think like that it was coming out this soon, but maybe like it was like one of those books like that when they got it, like they just kind of released it. So I should have it like soon, which is really exciting because, you know, I really been wanting to read this book. Now we're moving on to October 20th. And the first book that's coming out October 20th is called Plain Bad Heroines, written by Emily M. Danforth and illustrated by Sarah Lotman. And this is an LGBTQIA adult fantasy horror, which I'm so excited about. Like the stuff, like the early like reviews for like this have been really good, and I'm really excited for this. And this has been described as horror comedy centered around a cursed New England boarding school for girls, a wickedly whimsical celebration of the art of storytelling, sapphic love, and the rebellious female spirit. I'm so excited. So this is actually more of a historical fantasy because it takes place in 1902 with a bunch of girls like that are kind of like, you know, coming like into like their own, and they decide to establish a group called the Plain Bad Heroine Society. One of the girls like in this group, called Mary, has written a very scandalous memoir, and as time goes on, they find some dead bodies in their school that have a copy of Mary's book near them. 5 years after all of this starts, the boarding school closes its doors, and during like this time, 3 more people are mysteriously murdered and found that have died in very troubling ways. A century later, after everything happened like with everything in this boarding school, the boarding school actually ends up back in the newspapers again. When this breakout author Merritt publishes a book about the queer history of the school, and it inspires a controversial movie adaptation of everything that kind of happened in the school during the time of these murders. So they show up back to the original boarding school and they begin filming, and then things start happening on set that kind of like blurs the line between like where the curse of this boarding school starts and Hollywood ends. So this is kind of a story within a story that features black and white period illustrations. This is like another like one that I'm just so excited about because it just sounds so intriguing and so good. And I like the whole like, you know, through the ages kind of like a haunted like cursed boarding school with an LGBTQ like female sapphic like love story. So this is just going to be wonderful, and I'm just really excited for this one also. Another book that is coming out October 20th. This is the last book I'm going to discuss for October 20th. So the next book like that comes out October 20th is Among Beasts and Briars, written by Ashley Poston. I believe she is the one that wrote Geekerella in that series. This book sounds so intriguing, and like the cover is gorgeous. Like I cannot. Sirius is safe in her perfect kingdom. This kingdom, like, it doesn't have any famine, disease, or anything else. And as the prosperity of this kingdom grows, there is a neighboring woods like where it becomes more dark, more haunted, more sinister, and this forest carries a curse. Sirius carries a small bit of this curse in her magic, and she ends up having a fox like that kind of follows her around. New queen is crowned. Things like that have been living in the forest and hiding there come into the kingdom and start kind of like causing like mayhem and ruckus. As things slowly descend into chaos because like the woods is starting to bleed into her perfect kingdom, she is the only one that can stop it. So she decides to go on a journey to find the Lady of the Woods, who will be able to help her bring her kingdom back into being the perfect place that it was before. She uncovers secrets from the past, like about the forest and her kingdom and everything else. This sounds like it's going to be like a very classic like style fairy tale, and I'm so here for it. Like I love classic fairy tale kind of feels to it, so like I'm just really excited. Like I'm hoping like this gives me all the feels and all like the wonderful world building like that I'm craving from a story like this. Now we're also going to be moving on to October 27th, and the book that's coming out is Kingdom of the Wicked by Carrie Maniscalco, and I am so excited. This is the first book in a series by Carrie Maniscalco, and the first book that she has written since the last book in the Stalking Jack the Ripper series, which is the series that she is known for. And if you guys have been around on this channel at all, you guys know that I love the Stalking Jack the Ripper series. I thought it was a wonderful, amazing piece of historical fiction. Now, the Kingdom of the Wicked is more of a fantasy, less contemporary, because her other book series, which is the Stalking Jack the Ripper series, is actually more of a contemporary historical fiction, whereas Kingdom of the Wicked is going to be a historical fantasy fiction. It looks like we're going to be getting like some of like what we really loved, or what I really loved, like in the Stalking Jack the Ripper series, which was the history and romance like that. I just loved. Thomas Cresswell's like amazing. It's about two sisters, one brutal murder, a quest for vengeance that will unleash hell itself, and a budding romance. This is about two twins like that live in a society like where they are both witches, and they kind of operate like under the radar. Nobody really knows that they're witches, and one twin actually finds her other twin completely like murdered, and it's really violently murdered, and she's kind of having now like to figure out like where she stands and uncover like the murder like of her twin sister. Amelia sets out to seek vengeance from the serial killer. So Carrie Maniscalco really does focus like a lot on serial killers. She did in Stalking Jack the Ripper. So we once again are in a serial killer type setting like with this new book, which I'm really excited for because, you know, if you guys have been on this channel at all, like you guys know like that I'm kind of fascinated by serial killers. It's kind of like a macabre thing, but like I think they're really fascinating, like especially like the psychology of them. But Amelia, during her seeking vengeance like for the serial killer that killed her twin sister, she has having to reawaken like this dark magic. Amelia meets Wraith, who is this dark prince of hell. She's been warned against him like from all these fairy tales like when she was kind of like a little kid. And Wraith does claim to be on her side, but you know, we'll see. You know, angsty romances and stuff. We'll see how this goes. I'm so excited for this. This is like one book like that I've kind of been like really like out of my mind for, and I usually wait to read books like until I get more in the series, but I don't think I'm going to be able to wait to read this one. I think that what's going to happen is I'm going to probably binge it like the second I get it. So I'm really excited for that one also. Guys, I'm just, oh, I've been waiting like all year for this. Like this is one book like that I've just been waiting all year for. So another book that's also coming out October 27th is Hollowpox, The Hunt for Morgan Crow by Jessica Townsend. This is said to be like really good series for fans of like Harry Potter because it does have the chosen one trope, and this does have a magical school, and I've only read the first book in the series, but I loved it so much. It was such a good book. So we're on to the third book like that is getting ready to come out October 27th. I know a lot of people are very excited for this release because the first book was extremely addictive and very well structured and very interesting. So I definitely like recommend like the series, and you definitely should pick it up because everybody like that I know that has read the second one is graciously and excitingly anticipating like this third release in the series, and I just cannot wait for this. I think this is going to also be like really fantastic, and I need to get on it because I know like I want to get caught up like with the series. I have the second one, I just haven't gotten to it yet, and I know like that I think this series is supposed to be a total of 5 books, so like we're waiting on the last 2 books to come out, and I don't know like if I want to go ahead and binge it or torture myself or like wait till more books come out, but I know like I'm really excited regardless because that's another book in the world like that gives me an opportunity to read it. So now we're going to move on to the last day, which is October 29th, and this is going to be like a retelling by Stephen Fry called Troy, The Siege of Troy Retold. This is the 3rd book in his retelling series, and this circulates like around Troy and like everything that happened with Troy. I haven't read like his other books, but I know like that a lot of his books have been getting like a lot of hype as far as being retellings go, and they look really good and really interesting. So I'm definitely really excited for this. I don't think you've had to read the previous 2 books like in order to read this one because like they're all kind of like circulating like around particular points in Greek history. So it looks really good though, and like I'm really excited. Stephen Fry is actually an actor. He played like the talk show host in V for Vendetta, which I actually learned like on my live show. I think Dragon told me about it. So I'm really excited because like I love Troy, like, and I love the history like around that. So I'm kind of really excited for that also. So those are pretty much all of the releases like that I'm excited about that are coming out in October. I hope you guys really liked this video. If you guys like this video, hit the like and subscribe and the little bell icon if you guys want to receive emails every single time I post. I'm also on Instagram, Amazon, Goodreads, and Twitter. Those links are linked in the description below. Please like and subscribe. It really helps me out. I will see you guys again very, very soon. Thank you guys so much for watching, and come join me again like on this channel. I appreciate it. Thank you.